When a politician calls the prime minister a dead man walking and predicts the exact month he'll be forced out of office, you know things have gotten serious. Lee Anderson, the Reform UK MP and former Conservative who's never been shy about speaking his mind, just went nuclear on Keir Starmer. He says Starmer is the most despised prime minister in history, that he's cowardly, that he U-turns on everything, that he bends to his backbenchers just to save his own skin, and that his time is probably up after the May elections. Dead man walking. Those are brutal words. And they're coming at a time when Labour's net popularity rating stands at -59, when over 1 million people have signed petitions calling for a general election, and when speculation about a leadership challenge is dominating Westminster. Starmer insists he'll still be in number 10 by 2027, but Anderson is calling his bluff. May 2026. That's when Anderson thinks Starmer will be ousted. That's just 4 months away. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, where we track the collapse of Keir Starmer's premiership in real time. Let's break down Anderson's savage prediction, whether there's any substance to it, and what it tells us about the state of British politics. So here's what Lee Anderson actually said. He was speaking on GB News, which has become the natural home for politicians who want to say things that would get them in trouble on the BBC or ITV. Anderson said, "I can't see anybody replacing him, to be honest. At one time it was mooted about Angela Rayner replacing him. She's sort of gone missing. Wes Streeting is sort of slithering about in the background. He could be ready to launch the old dagger in the back." Let's unpack that because it's delicious. First, Anderson admits he can't see who would actually replace Starmer. That's interesting because it suggests the problem isn't just Starmer, it's that Labour doesn't have an obvious alternative. Angela Rayner was previously seen as a potential successor. She's the deputy prime minister, she's got working-class credentials, she's popular with the Labour left. But Anderson says she's gone missing. And he's right. When was the last time Rayner was prominent in the news? She's been keeping a very low profile. Maybe she's deliberately staying out of the firing line. Maybe she's been sidelined. Either way, she's not positioning herself as the alternative. Then Anderson talks about Wes Streeting, and the language he uses is perfect, slithering about in the background, like a snake, ready to launch the old dagger in the back. That's the imagery of treachery, of betrayal, of someone who's pretending to be loyal while secretly plotting. And honestly, that's how a lot of people see Streeting. He's been very visible, doing media rounds, defending government policy, but also subtly positioning himself as more competent than Starmer. He's raising his profile, he's making himself known. And everyone in Westminster knows that when a cabinet minister starts raising their profile during difficult times, they're preparing for a leadership bid. Whether Streeting would actually challenge Starmer or whether he's just keeping his options open is unclear, but the perception is there. Anderson then delivers his most devastating lines. "I'm surprised you said he had a popularity rating of 11%. I'm surprised it's as high as that, because everywhere you go in this country, as a politician, people talk to me wherever I go, and this man is despised. I think he's the most despised prime minister in history." The most despised prime minister in history. That's an extraordinary claim. Is it true? Well, we don't have comprehensive polling data going back centuries, but we do know that Starmer's net favorability rating is -54, which is historically terrible. We know that Labour's net popularity is -59. We know that over 1 million people signed a petition calling for an early election. We know that local elections in May are expected to be a bloodbath for Labour. So while we can't definitively say Starmer is the most despised ever, he's certainly in the running. And the fact that Anderson can credibly make that claim tells you how bad things are. Anderson continues, "I think his time is probably up after the May elections this year, but I dread to think who's going to replace him." So Anderson is saying May 2026 is when it happens. That's when the local elections take place. And if Labour gets hammered, which seems likely, that's when the pressure becomes unbearable. That's when Labour MPs start panicking about their own seats and decide that Starmer has to go. And Anderson adds that he dreads to think who'll replace him, which suggests any replacement would also be terrible. It's a complete condemnation of the entire Labour leadership. The context for all this is crucial. YouGov polling shows Labor's net popularity rating at -59. That's not a typo, -59. That means far more people disapprove of Labor than approve. For context, when the Conservatives lost the 2024 election, their ratings were terrible, but Labor has managed to become even more unpopular in just 6 months. That's an achievement in the worst possible way. The Prime Minister has been facing open questions over his leadership ahead of the May elections. That's media code for there are Labour MPs openly discussing whether to replace him. When journalists say there are questions over someone's leadership, it means there are actual conversations happening about removing them. Anderson's comments come after Starmer insisted earlier in the week that he'll still be in number 10 by 2027, despite discontent among some backbenchers. The fact that Starmer feels the need to say this publicly is telling. Strong leaders don't have to insist they'll still be in their job in a year's time. The fact that Starmer is saying it means people are speculating he won't be. It's like when a football manager says the chairman has given him his full backing. Everyone knows that means he'll be sacked within a week. When you have to publicly assert that you're not going anywhere, it's because people think you are. There's been ongoing speculation that if May's elections are a bloodbath for Labour, it will spark a contest to replace him, and that's the key. May is the trigger point. If Labour loses badly in the local elections, in the Scottish Parliament elections, in the Welsh Senate elections, then Labour MPs will panic. They'll look at the results and think, if we stick with Starmer, we're going to lose our seats at the next general election. And self-preservation is the most powerful force in politics. MPs will sacrifice their leader to save themselves. It's happened before, and it'll happen again. The Conservatives went through multiple leaders in quick succession because MPs kept panicking. Labour could easily do the same. Starmer's defense is interesting. He told the BBC's Laura Kuenssberg, "Under the last government, we saw constant chopping and changing of leadership, of teams. It caused utter chaos, and it's amongst the reasons that the Tories were booted out so effectively at the last election. Nobody wants to go back to that. It's not in our national interest." So his argument is that keeping him as leader is better than the chaos of replacing him. And there's some logic to that. The Conservatives' revolving door of prime ministers, Theresa May to Boris Johnson to Liz Truss to Rishi Sunak, did look chaotic and contributed to their defeat. But Starmer's argument only works if keeping him as leader is better than the chaos of replacing him. And increasingly, Labour MPs might decide that the chaos of a leadership contest is preferable to the certainty of electoral disaster under Starmer. Starmer continues, "We know from that evidence what happens if you go down that chaotic path, and I'm not going to take us back to that kind of chaos." Notice the phrasing, "I'm not going to take us back." It's assertive, it's trying to project strength, but it also reveals insecurity. He's trying to shut down the speculation by force of will. And then he says, speaking from Downing Street, "I will be sitting in this seat by 2027. That's May 2027, presumably. So he's saying he'll make it through the May 2026 elections and be prime minister for another year after that. But Anderson is predicting he'll be gone by May 2026. One of them is going to be proven spectacularly wrong. The question is, which prediction is more credible? Well, let's look at the evidence. The polling is abysmal. Labour is deeply unpopular. Starmer personally is one of the most disliked prime ministers ever. The May elections are expected to be terrible for Labour. There's open speculation about a leadership challenge. Multiple petitions calling for a general election have gathered hundreds of thousands or millions of signatures. The government has U-turned on multiple policies, making them look weak and directionless. They've broken manifesto promises, destroying trust. They've failed on core issues like immigration and the economy. The trajectory is terrible. Every indicator suggests things are getting worse, not better. So Anderson's prediction that Starmer will be forced out after May has a lot of supporting evidence. On the other hand, changing leaders is hard. It requires Labour MPs to organize, to agree on a replacement, to go through a leadership election process, and to deal with the media circus that comes with it. It's disruptive and risky, and there's no obvious replacement. Rayner has gone quiet, Streeting is too junior and hasn't built enough support. There's no clear candidate who everyone agrees would be better than Starmer. And without that, inertia wins. MPs grumble but don't act. They hope things will improve. They wait for one more election, one more policy announcement, one more reset.
And before you know it, Starmer has survived. But inertia only works for so long. If May is truly catastrophic, if Labour loses hundreds of council seats, if they come third behind Reform in some areas, if the Scottish and Welsh results are disasters, then the inertia won't be enough. The pressure will be overwhelming. And at that point, even without a clear replacement, MPs will move. They'll figure out the replacement later. The first step is getting rid of the leader who's dragging them down. That's what happened with the Conservatives. They didn't always have a clear plan for who would replace the outgoing PM, but they knew the current one had to go, and Labour could easily follow the same pattern. Anderson's characterization of Starmer as cowardly is particularly damaging because it fits the narrative. Starmer has been consistently unable to take clear positions on difficult issues. On Trump and Venezuela, he's waffled and evaded. On Brexit and the single market, he's trying to have it both ways. On immigration, he makes promises he can't keep. On the economy, he blames the